diplomacy, the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, is working to send a delegation to the United States, apparently to convince members of our Congress not to sign off on a military strike. Of course, Russia is one of the Syrian regime's closest allies. The U.S. has accused Russia of providing the Syrian government with military support. Russia's foreign minister has flat out rejected the claims the Syrian regime was behind the chemical deadly weapons attack. Today, he called the evidence that the U.S. has presented, quote, absolutely unconvincing. James Rosen with the news live for us in Washington. James, what do we know about what Putin hopes to accomplish by sending a delegation to talk to our Congress?
Well, Harris, let's just assume that it's not intended to aid President Obama in this hour of political peril. The failure of the reset of the U.S.-Russian relationship, much heralded at the dawn of the Obama administration, has greatly complicated U.S. efforts throughout the two-year civil war in Syria, where the Kremlin has steadfastly backed the embattled Bashar al-Assad.
I think your American colleagues could better understand what the position of the Russian Federation is based on. Such a dialogue between parliaments would also play a significant part in the development of Russian-American relations on the whole.
At the UN Security Council, Russia has often been joined by China in blocking action against Syria. Today, a spokesman for the communist regime in Beijing warned the U.S. against unilateral action.
Any action taken by the international community should abide by the principles of the United Nations, so as to avoid complicating the Syrian issue and dragging the Middle East down into further disaster.
But German Chancellor Angela Merkel, speaking during a televised debate as she tries to win re-election, suggested that the U.S. may return to the Security Council, Harris.
Well, I know the Arab League met this weekend. Wondering, what is the support we have among the Arab and Muslim world?
Well, never perhaps as overt as we would like it. You're right, the Arab League met in Cairo over the weekend. Key figures there expressed a range of opinions, from cautious support of U.S. intervention in Syria to opposition to a unilateral strike.
We will not be satisfied by just condemning the situation. We demand the international community to take all the necessary measures to help the Syrian people and stop the hooliganism of the murderers in the regime.
The 18 members of the Arab League hold the regime accountable. Also, they consider the United Nations as an official representative of the international community, and only it is responsible to take necessary measures.
The Israelis, meantime, are said to be lying low so as to avoid affecting the congressional debate here, Harris.
Thank you very much, James. Joining me now is retired Major General Bob Scales, a Fox News military analyst, and we're glad he's along to help us navigate through what's happened today. General, a senior source has told our Jennifer Griffin that this delay, while Congress figures out what it will do about the president's request to hit the Assad regime, hurts Assad as much as it does the Pentagon planners. How so?
It's not true. Anytime a nation marches up to the brink of war and then sort of takes a knee for 10 days, that nation passes the time advantage and the initiative over to the enemy. And now the ball is in Assad's court. So he's got time to move around, to hide his major weapon systems, to put them in urban areas, to camouflage them, or perhaps even evacuate some of his aircraft to a secure environment. No, sure, the planners and the targeteers can continue to do their work. But remember now, a cruise missile only strikes stationary targets. Assad's army is on the move, Harris, and this cannot play out well 10 or 11 days from now when we conduct this strike.
I want to talk to you about something else a senior official told Fox News, that sitting at the ready for days and weeks has a negative effect for us as well, some of what you've just mentioned, mainly, though, burning through our tax dollars. What are we paying for in this delay?
Well, it's very expensive. You know, you're moving an entire carrier battle group, the Nimitz, all the way into the Red Sea. They're making circles in the eastern Mediterranean with 6 fairly large warships. There's also the morale effect on the sailors out there who've already done their targeting. They've built themselves up to conduct these strikes. They're waiting to push the buttons. And more importantly, those who are chasing these weapon systems with overhead sensors are having a dickens of a time trying to keep up with all this and keep the ships ready to shoot. This is not a simple operation. It is enormously complex and takes hundreds of dedicated folks to ensure that this target set is updated. And I have to tell you, things are still tense in the Mediterranean.
You know, it's interesting. I have said the word Russia almost as often as I've said Syria tonight because Russia is moving in some interesting ways. They want to come now, according to their president, and talk to our Congress. But aside from that, is something physical that they've done today, and that's send a spy ship to the Eastern Mediterranean. What kind of ship is this? What is it possible, or what could it possibly accomplish?
Yeah, this is an electronic warfare ship. We have many of the very similar ships. What we do quite often is we will trail behind, say, the Russians or the Chinese and gather electrical intelligence. So there are no guns on this ship. It's not a weapon to be feared, but the Russians are interested in how we do business, and they're going to be watching us very, very closely. And if that ship makes it to the Mediterranean before this strike commences, the Russians are going to learn a great deal about how much progress we've made in conducting these strategic strikes, Harris.
Interesting. Speaking of progress, the USS Nimitz is on its way.
Right.
Why?
Yeah, and well, because it's a game of checkers and chess, Harris. It's an opportunity to move a carrier battle group into the Red Sea, check and checkmate against any Russian moves. It's also presence in the Red Sea, perhaps later in the Eastern Mediterranean. And if things do go badly, and the administration has to prolong these strikes for more than 96 hours, the carrier battle group may participate, but frankly, as of today, that's unlikely, Harris.
Well, I always like to ask a general who's been in the battle a question like this. When we have that much firepower pointed in one direction, how much damage can we really do to the Assad regime in, say, 24 to 96 hours?
Can do a lot of damage, and let's face it, his regime is going to be damaged, particularly his larger systems and all those facilities, Harris, that can't be moved, like radar sites, command and control headquarters, airfields. So he's going to suffer some damage. The question is after the smoke clears after 24 to 96 hours, will Assad still be in power? So far, it seems to us at least, the answer is yes.
General Bob Scales, thank you so much for being here tonight. You know, the story on Syria, the crisis in Syria, has been unfolding nonstop this long holiday weekend. We will